also like to welcome our very own person, Mrs. Jibril Aziza. She is a senior manager and pioneer staff of the FinTech and Innovation Division of the Registration, Exchanges, Market Infrastructure and Innovation Department of the Securities and Exchange Commission. Thank you all for joining in today. I would also like to welcome our own people from the NGX group of companies. I'll start by welcoming our very own Dr. Olufemi Oyenuga. Dr. Oyenuga is the Chief Digital Officer, and he has the Digital Technology Division of the Nigerian Exchange Limited. We also have the Divisional Head, Business Support Services Division of the Nigerian Exchange Limited, Mrs. Irene Robinson Ayawanle. And then we have the Group Company Secretary and Compliance for the Nigerian Exchange Group PLC, Mrs. Mojisola Adiola. We also have the Head of the Rules and Adjudication of the NGX Regulation Limited, Mr. Toyin Adenuba, and the Head of Data and Digital Innovation Department, Mr. Afiz Ramoni. We are glad that you are all able to join us today, despite all your very busy schedules. My name is Nkem Isiozo, and I am the Legal Manager in charge of the Intellectual Property and Technology Units of the Legal Services Department of the Nigerian Exchange Limited, and I'll be your moderator for today's event. At this juncture, I'd like to share some housekeeping rules before I run you through the agenda. All our speakers are expected to keep their microphones on mute throughout the session, except they are invited to make contributions. And attendees are encouraged to fully participate and also use the Q&A features as well as the chat box panel on the screen to raise all questions they might have. Okay, so for today's webinar, it would be in two sessions. The first session will start with an opening remark by our very own Dr. Oyenuga, who is the Chief Digital Officer of Nigerian Exchange Limited. That would be followed by by an analysis of some proposed rules on digital assets by Mrs. Jibril Aziza. And after that, we have remarks from our very own Mr. Toyin Adenuba on IP on innovation in the capital market. He'll be taking it from the perspective of NGX Regulation Limited. Then the DH of Business Support Services Division of Nigerian Exchange Limited will have a few thoughts about digital assets, fintech solutions, and regulatory trends. After that, we'll then take the keynote speech by Victor Olorunfemi, the Head of Branding and Communications at the Bantu Blockchain Foundation. Then the second session would be the panel session that would be moderated by the founder of the Wi-Fi Combat Academy, Mrs. Dele Toju Osho. Thank you all once again for joining us today. Today, we are celebrating the World Intellectual Property Day, which is observed annually on April 26th and was established in the year 2000 by the World Intellectual Property Organization, WIPO, Geneva. The theme for this year's event is Intellectual Property and the Youth, Innovating for a Better Future. And our goal for this year is to ensure that the NGX Group of Companies 2022 World IP Day celebration creates an opportunity to discuss the recent innovations in the digital asset space, specifically the important role NFTs now play globally and in the lives of the Nigerian youth. That's why we have the title, which is presently the talk of the town, NFTs, the wild and the wonderful. I will now invite the Chief Digital Officer and the Head of the Digital Technology Division of Nigerian Exchange Limited, Dr. Olufemi Oyenuga, to give the opening remarks. Over to you, Dr. Efo.
Thank you very much for the introduction, Nkem, and I wish everyone a very good morning, distinguished guests. I'd like to actually welcome you to this webinar hosted by the NGX Group of Companies to commemorate the 2022 Intellectual Property Day. We're extremely pleased to collaborate with Bantu Blockchain Foundation, Wi-Fi Combat Academy, to discuss non-fungible tokens, popularly known aka NFT, which has become a trending topic, of course, in the last 24 months within this digital space, most especially looking at the digital asset. I'm especially grateful to all the speakers, panel discussants, and participants to discuss in this interesting topic. You will actually agree with me that the ability to adapt and evolve in the digital age is ever-changing and ever-changing customer needs as well in the marketplace. Initially, it used to be the 5 V's of technology. Now we're seeing digital asset evolve into a critical requirement of today's fast-paced technology-driven ecosystem. While innovation and change occurs constantly, history also shows the progress that has come in waves and the new digital assets amongst technology waves, leading businesses today. You see a lot of capital market evolution around digital assets, even central bank as well, things around digital currency. And the need to ride to ensure that we maintain relevance in the medium to future term is very important as a backdrop. This particularly applies to the financial technology companies, the fintech space, that leads innovation in the financial industry. And I dare see across the entire ecosystem as well. The advent of fintech, regtech, and associated technology evangelists has led to changes in traditional financial market practices, and it's ushered new plethora of evolution in creating uphill tasks for regulators to accommodate this innovation within the regulatory framework. I did mention regtech a minute ago. While Nigeria has useful population as well, is quite an interesting population to dimension. You also find that within the space, we've always looked at how we can use this topic around digital assets to kind of uplift the ecosystem, the chasm as well, when we're looking at fintech space. And it's, for me, quite interesting that we are actually discussing this today. Some numbers around the advent of fintech. Between 2014 and 2019, Nigeria's Boston fintech has raised over $600 million in funding, attracted over 25% of that wallet. And we've raised about 491 million as well in Africa tech startup space. In fact, alone in 2019, that was the amount that was raised. Kenya only coming second to that milestone of 149 million. What does this all mean? It means that Nigeria is becoming the fintech capital of Africa and associated digital assets and digital evolution in terms of where we take this discussion to becomes very imperative. These advances continue to present significant opportunities, challenges for regulators in their quest to create, functional supervisory framework that protects investors whilst promoting economic growth and development through ICT sector without, really shifting innovation. There's a very interesting ethical responsibility for innovation as we begin to evolve. And there's the balance of responsible innovation as well in the digital space. So the proliferation of digital assets, including non-fungible tokens, presents such a challenge in Nigeria capital market, financial industry as a whole. And it seems policy response by the apex regulators in the capital market, the SEC, the Security and Exchange Commission, is quite important. I'm particularly pleased about today's event. Very excited to see the discussion and also the panel section, because it would help us, all stakeholders, everyone in the ecosystem, to make a sense of this wide and wonderful space of digital assets with a special focus on NFT. I've invited a diverse group of speakers, quite vast in their different ways, in their different profession, with a requisite of knowledge. And they've recorded commendable achievement in this space with respect to industrial volume and capacity as well. I'm confident that the speakers of today will do justice to the topic. Thank you, Lord, for your kind attention to my speech, and I wish a fantastic and robust deliberation. Over to you, Nkem. Thank you very much.
you very much, Dr. Efo. Thanks a lot for that opening remark. So we now invite Mrs. Aziza Jibril, the Senior Manager, FinTech and Innovation Office of the Securities and Exchange Commission, to come and give us her thoughts and analysis of the proposed rules. Over to you, Mrs. Aziza.
Okay, thank you, Nkem. Good morning, all. So I will give a brief overview of the SEC perspective and response to the development of innovation in the capital market. I will start with the preliminary introductions and then end with the interesting topic on the recently released virtual asset service provider draft rules. So my aim is to increase awareness on the Commission's facilitative approach to innovation and its systematic outcomes. So as you all know, SEC has the dual mandate of regulating and developing the market. And so when we say regulation, ultimately it seeks to engender transparency, discipline, confidence, etc., so that markets will work well and deliver the services and products that which meet consumer needs. Contrary to the views of a lot of innovators and thriving innovators, I may say, it's not inhibitive, rather it portends good for the participants and the investors in general. It prevents market failures, it protects investors, protects firms, and also promotes macroeconomic stability. So in terms of the fintech challenge, with the evolving of the fintech phenomenon, we saw new business models, new applications and processes, products, which had a material effect on the markets and institutions that we actually regulate. So it was a big challenge. It is a big challenge, and it for regulators globally, and SEC is not different. So in order to meet this challenge, in order to address this need, because regulatory inertia has no space in this context, because since there is a need for regulators to act, so regulators globally, since it's a great global phenomenon, regulators globally, came together and came up with their own regulatory innovation initiatives. Basically, they were categorized into four types of initiatives that regulators globally adopted to be able to handle this challenge. There was the Innovation Office. This is like a front-facing office that handles the engagement with the innovators themselves, their products, gives them guidance on what they need to do in terms of regulation, and also deals with internal stakeholders within the regulatory institution itself to give guidance and to help them navigate through the new products and what relevant regulation or amendment needs to be done, or what relevant focus. Secondly, there was the regulatory sandbox, which is also another regulatory initiative, which is basically like a test environment where innovators are able to test their innovations and products within a restricted timeline. Then also the RegTech applications. We have the RegTech applications, which are mainly deployed to be able to handle or to solve regulatory compliance problems or regulatory supervisory problems. Then last but not the least is the regulation revision, where regulators will, some regulators look at, take a holistic look at existing regulations to see whether they are fit for purpose and to test their effectiveness in case of new products or new processes coming on board. So for SEC, in order to before you adopt any intervention, there's need to articulate an objective and set your priorities right. So for the Commission, we did that, and our objectives and priorities mainly revolve around three aspects. The first one was safety. We wanted to ensure the safety of innovations in coming into the market in order to protect investors and the market itself. Secondly, we wanted to look at market deepening, facilitating innovation to birth new products and services that will address genuine investor needs. And then finally, we wanted products and solutions that will provide or solve existing problems, that will promote regulatory compliance and enhance regulatory supervision. So in terms of what we have seen in our own regulatory space, in terms of the technologies and in terms of the products and platforms. Basically, in terms of the technologies deployed, we've seen AI, machine learning, APIs, we've seen DLT, cloud, and biometric. And in terms of the crowdfunding, in terms of the products and platforms, we've seen the manifestation of crowdfunding platforms, digital investment platforms, securities, advertising, investor education platforms. We've seen mini bond and debenture platforms. We've seen KYC platforms and asset tokenization infrastructure. We've also seen robo-advisors, and then finally, of course, the virtual asset exchanges, including the centralized, decentralized, and P2P. But mainly, we've seen a lot of P2P, even though from a regulatory perspective, we questioned that band of peer-to-peer, because in a lot of cases, it's not actually peer-to-peer. So after seeing what has manifested or crystallized in our environment, what has the SEC done so far? From 2018 to date, the SEC has implemented a lot of initiatives to facilitate and address this challenge. First and foremost, we've seen the adoption of the Innovation Office structure, which is the office that I belong to, which is like the control center or coordinating unit for all interventions to do with the fintech fintech products, fintech processes, and other issues relating to innovation. This is really key. And then secondly, we've seen the domestication of the fintech roadmap report and the blockchain and virtual financial assets report. These were committees that were inaugurated by the commission to be able to really understand and get input from stakeholders. So a lot of the recommendations of those reports have been implemented right now. We have, through the Innovation Office, we have engaged with over 200 fintech firms. And when I say engagement, I mean face-to-face engagement, virtual meetings, presentations, demonstrations, email interactions, and really we have really engaged with a lot of these fintechs. In terms of regulation, this is an area which, with all sense of decorum, I can say SEC has tried, has done well. We have released a number of regulations so far. We have released the crowdfunding rules, we have released the digital sub-broker rules, and we have released robo-advisor rules. And then right now we have released the draft rules on virtual asset service providers. So in terms of the firms, because you'll ask if we have released rules, have you started registering firms? And I can say yes, we have registered at least 2 firms, and we have about 13 now undergoing process of registration. In terms of virtual or digital assets, since 2020, we released a position on our treatment of those virtual assets. SEC took a position to say that it will regulate these virtual asset activities as long as, insofar as they are securities and investment activities. So that was done to get it out of the way. We maintain that we will regulate that space, and so and we have started in that. The second thing we did in that regard was the release of regulatory incubation guidelines. We looked at it as, well, regulatory incubation is like a modification of the sandbox structure. We looked at our own environment and came up with a proposal. That one has not taken off yet, but we are hoping that it will soon. So if you look at these steps, you will see that the recent release of the proposed rules on virtual assets service providers is like a culmination of activities that have started for some years. It is not just a one-off thing. The rules or proposed rules or draft rules on virtual asset service providers are actually intended to give most to our statement that we will regulate. So the draft rules have been released, and what it did, we may not go into granular because there is no time, but mainly the rules, the proposed rules on virtual asset service providers gave a clear definition of what the Commission regarded as a VASP, and those VASPs, as defined in the rules, will be those that will come under the regulation. So any entity that conducts exchange between virtual asset and fiat currencies, exchange between one or more forms of virtual assets, transfer of virtual assets, safekeeping and administration of virtual assets or instruments, enabling control over virtual assets, and participation in and provision of financial services related to an issuer's offer or sale of a virtual asset. So another key thing that the rules did was proposed was, it made a clear distinction between virtual assets, which are your usual crypto currency, and the digital tokens, which we refer to as digital asset, which is a digital token that represents assets such as a debt or equity claim. So the rules are not just one; they have been segmented into 5. We have the general rules on VASPs. We have the rules on digital asset custodians. We have the rules on digital asset exchanges. We have the rules on digital asset offering platforms, and then the issuance of digital assets as securities. So main points to note here, as I said, is that the rules recognize the unique virtual asset and then the non-unique asset-backed token. This is very key because I think as a result of the release of our classification and statement in 2020, there was we had some feedback regarding the interchangeable use of virtual and digital. So these rules have taken care of that. Secondly, for the virtual asset, the emphasis is on the trading, exchange, and custody on platforms for investment purposes, while the focus for the digital asset-backed token is the issuance on the DLT infrastructure, which is not known to us. So that was the focus. And for the platforms, the DAX, the digital asset custodian, the digital asset offering platform, the main provisions were regarding registration, requirements, eligibility, governance, outsourcing, risk management, trading, asset protection, AML, of course, conflict of interest, maintenance of records, and then suspension, withdrawal, and cancellation. There are other provisions, but these are the main ones. And then for the issuance of digital assets, the main provisions were on the initial assessment filing, the registration of securities, requirements for registration of securities, the investment limits of funds to be raised, and then the exemption of from registration of digital assets. So in essence, this is what the 5 segments of the rules contain, and presently we'll continue our engagements with other regulators, because as you know, regulation of virtual assets is not just a single regulator issue. It cuts across regulators. It even cuts across borders. So the engagements both with regulators and stakeholders will continue. Our rulemaking process will continue so that we'll reach a conclusion. And then at the end of it, we'll now talk about implementation. So so far, I think that is where we are in terms of approach to regulating innovation, and then the most recent release of the virtual asset service provider. Thank you very much for listening. I will await any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Aziza, for this detailed presentation. We really, really appreciate your presence and how you've broken it down for us all. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much. And to our attendees, we really appreciate your presence as well. I can see the chat box is really popping, and I can see some hands are up. Please feel free to use the Q&A features on your screen, the chat box. I can assure you that someone is on standby to take down all your questions, and they would all be addressed at the appropriate time. Thank you so much. Okay, so I will now invite our very own Mr. Tony Adenuba, the head of the Rules and Adjudication of Nigeria, NGX Regulation Limited, to come and give us his remarks from the NGX Regulation Limited perspective. Over to you, Mr. Tony.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you can hear me clearly.
Yes, we can, Mr. Tony. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much. So I'm from NGX Regulation Limited. We felicitate with you all as we celebrate this year's World Intellectual Property Day. As you're all aware, there is a World Intellectual Property Organization which has defined what intellectual property means. Speaks about inventions, literary and artistic works, design, symbols, and the rest of them. IPs, they are protected by patents, copyrights, and trademarks, and they enable people to earn recognition or financial benefits from their invention or creation. Now, where it concerns us is that for an institution to remain relevant in the face of increasing competitive markets, that institution must innovate. At the NGX, we believe in that. So it means you must have in place a process through which new ideas are generated, critiqued, and are put into commercial practice for your good positioning and global relevance. One important way to help to encourage innovation is through the protection of intellectual property. So IP is a key asset class for business growth and economic development. And the protection of IP rights is vital to promoting innovation and creativity. And it is an essential element of the free financial market. So you have the ability to exploit economic potential of IP assets, and that ability is critical to the growth of the economy. From the capital markets perspective, speaking from the NGX and starting with market data, it is almost impossible to speak about the capital markets and the role that IP plays in the markets without mentioning market data, especially in terms of stock exchanges. So market data basically encompasses a range of information such as price, bid and ask quotes for the shares or securities that are listed for buying and selling of the exchange, and market volume of shares available for transactions. For exchanges, market data is a byproduct of bringing buyers and sellers of securities together. As you are aware, NGX is a member of the World Federation of Exchanges. This is one of the World Federation of Exchanges sustainability principles, is that exchanges must actively engage with stakeholders to advance the sustainable finance agenda. This includes collaborating with other financial market participants to develop products or offerings to advance the sustainable finance agenda. It also extends to the exchange of information and data between exchanges. Speaking about market surveillance, you know that at the exchange and as an SRO, the SEC requires you to be able to surveil your market in order to be able to properly regulate it. So stock exchanges are repositories of knowledge and information, particularly with their knowledge of market activities and production of quality data regarding market activities. That is the buying and selling and information in that regard. Furthermore, stock exchanges develop and use a wide range of market surveillance tools. These activities generate knowledge goods, and such knowledge, resources, and goods developed within stock exchanges or for stock exchanges is one area of economic activity, particularly concerned with intellectual property, and also trainings, seminars, and workshops just like this ones. At NGX, we continue to organize workshops and trainings aimed at disseminating our knowledge resources to our customers and the general public. This knowledge extends to effective market rules, such as the rules that were recently exposed by the SEC that my colleague from the SEC just spoke about. In this regard, at NGX regulation, from time to time when it is necessary, we issue detailed and quality interpretive guidance. You're welcome to visit our website to see interpretive guidance on different subject areas that may interest you. The market rules would also govern the governance of your businesses, investor protection, and market initiatives, and different products as well. At NGX regulation, just like the theme of what I'm speaking to you about, innovation is very important. For us, we take stability, creation of value, transactions, wealth creation, environmental, social, and governance requirements, employment, education, and tech innovation as very important. And coincidentally, these are themes that the World Federation of Exchanges propagates and subscribes to. It believes that a sustainable financial system is stable, it creates value, it transacts financial assets in ways that shape real wealth to serve the long-term needs of a sustainable and inclusive economy, along with all other dimensions relevant to achieving those needs, including the economic, social, and environmental issues that surround us and we have to contend with on a day-to-day basis. Technological innovation is very important, and a very significant proportion of speakers here today are people that deal in that area. You have to have resilient infrastructure and construct your infrastructure in a resilient manner. And you also deal with climate change mitigation and adaptation. At NGX regulation, we understand the importance of innovation in the regulation of our markets. We're regularly on the lookout for identifying, developing, and introducing improvements and novelties that support our aspiration to remain at the regulation forefront towards ensuring adequate regulation of our markets. So, prior to demutualization of the exchange, that's the Nigerian Stock Exchange, NGX Reco was the regulation division. And at that point in time, we continued carrying out our obligations as required under the SEC rules and the relevant legislation, the ISA. Now we are the NGX Reco under the X era of the exchange, which is an era of digital transformation at the exchange. At NGX Reco, we make use of technology tools in regulating the exchange's markets. So you have the broker oversight and supervision system, which is the XPOS. We introduced this in 2015 to help in regulating our trading license holders. These are people that you used to call the stockbrokers, and to bring their operations in line with best global practices. This application helps to redefine compliance and regulation experience between us and trading license holders. We also have what you call the Issuance Portal, which is the X-Issuer. We introduced this in 2014 to ensure prompt dissemination of issuer information to the market and investing public. So you would observe that companies regularly file their audited financial statements. At the exchange, we expect you to file these financial statements to the X-Issuer. And then we have the X-Issue, the X-Whistle, I mean. You know that sometimes in the market, some people may violate the rules and people may not be aware that these rules have been violated. So we have the X-Whistle, which is a secure online portal, which is also, you can also call it the whistleblowing portal, through which investors or members of the general public can, provide information regarding possible violations of market rules. And you can report these and disclose them on an anonymous basis so that you can encourage persons to disclose. You know that in the market, not everybody is like you. Not everybody is going to comply with the rules like you. But in order to ensure that those people who are not complying with the rules do not ruin the markets for the rest of us, those of us who see these violations happening need to disclose or blow the whistle on these violations of the rules. And then you have the X-Filing portal to facilitate the electronic filing and processing of securities listings to drive regulatory objectives. You would observe that a lot of fintech companies regularly go to the market to raise capital, and this is going to be very important to them. The portal was developed to facilitate a timely review of applications, thereby improving the quality of our service delivery and quality and quick time to the market. And then you have SMARTS, which was deployed in 2017 to enable real-time surveillance on trades conducted through any of our trading platforms. And then you have what you call the X compliance report. This is published on a weekly basis to investors and to general public to provide information to them. You would observe that I had mentioned disclosure in the course of my speaking. Disclosure is very important. Under our SEC rules in Nigeria, merger notifications. Now, a merger is, when you have entities and businesses or issuers coming together to form a bigger business and to continue their business operations. What that's really saying is that when there's a merger notification, it should indicate whether the merger will involve transfer of real and intellectual property rights. You see that I'm tying it back to the theme of today's discussion and why we're celebrating today, which is intellectual property, things like that. But in general market transactions, intellectual property is generally part of information that you disclose, and intellectual property that parties that are transacting regularly exchange from time to time. At NGX, to keep up to speed, we benchmark and model our standards against the best exchanges and regulators globally. So in the US SEC Division of Corporate Finance in 2019 issued guidance on issuers' disclosure obligations with regard to intellectual property and technology risks. They say that they encourage companies to expand their understanding of disclosure requirements to include risks resulting from compromise or stolen data, technology, and intellectual property. You see that we're coming back to the point of intellectual property. We're talking about risk, we're talking about business, we're talking about market data, which I started with. The division noted that although there is no requirement under the law for such disclosures, companies should still make these disclosures in order that they can, properly assess and take care of any emerging risks that they may face. I hope that I've been able to contribute to the discussion well, and we wish you more success, health, wealth, and quality compliance statuses. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Tony. Thank you so much for taking it global and bringing it back home, as well as also tying it down to the reason why we are all gathered here today. Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate that detailed presentation. Okay, so at this point, we would like to welcome our very own Mrs. Irene Robinson Ayawanle to share a few thoughts about digital assets, fintech solutions, and regulatory trends. Mrs. Robinson Ayawanle is the divisional head for Business Support Services Division of Nigerian Exchange Limited. Welcome, Mrs. Robinson Ayawanle.
Thank you very much, Nkem, and thank you, Mrs. Jibril. Thank you, Tony. First of all, I must say thank you to everyone that is participating at the webinar. We appreciate your attendance and we look forward to having an illuminating time with everyone. Thank you, Ms. Jibril, for presenting an overview of the activities of the Securities and Exchange Commission in the face of developments in the fintech space, and also giving us an overview of the 5 proposed rules that deal with the digital asset space and its segments. A major learning I know for all of us is the adoption of engagement and collaboration by the SEC in dealing with the developments being seen in this space. And we are all encouraged to continuously reach out to the SEC for such engagements and collaboration. This webinar today and the SEC's participation is an example of such engagements and collaboration. Indeed, I encourage all of us to make out time, if we haven't already done so, to go to the SEC website to review the rules that Mrs. Jibril talked about and send in our comments. We all have a duty to ensure the growth and development of our market in a way that encourages investment. It was also equally pleasing to hear from my colleague, Mr. Toyin Adenuba, on the relationship between intellectual property, innovation, growth of business products and revenue, and sustainability, as well as the great work being done by NGX Regulation Limited to regulate the market using digitization as well as emerging technologies. I would like to share a few thoughts of mine about digital assets, fintech solutions, and regulatory trends. It is always very interesting to hear and understand the regulatory direction for innovative solutions. The advent of fintech has led to changes in traditional financial market practices and ushered in a new era, creating an uphill task for regulators and SROs like ourselves to accommodate these innovations within their regulatory framework. To align market practices with reality, regulators have redefined their supervisory framework, as we heard today from Mrs. Jibril. Globally, regulatory trends tend to play catch up with innovation. In the case of fintech solutions and digital assets, recent regulatory trends appear to have been misunderstood as an act to stifle innovation. Contrary to this assumption, we believe that regulators have embraced fintech and indeed introduced regulation to fintech-related activities to achieve their objectives to protect investors, reduce systemic risk, and preserve the integrity of the market, but at the same time ensuring that the innovation, creativity, ease, and seamlessness that these fintech solutions have brought are also maintained. And we heard a lot of that from Mrs. Jibril. With the proliferation of digital assets, including NFTs, there has been growing concern of the suitability of NFTs and other digital assets as a convenient tool for Ponzi schemes, money laundering, terrorism, and proliferation financing. Thus, the proposed rules which the SEC spoke to us about for the digital asset space is not an act to stifle innovation, but to ensure that the space is not used as an avenue for illicit activities. It is our hope that these regulations will help investors and market stakeholders make the most of their digital assets while conducting their activities in a fair, efficient, and transparent manner. And again, I make that clarion call. If you've not already done so, go to the SEC website. These rules have been exposed for comments. This is your time to comment. So that being said, the goal for today's event is to ensure that the 2022 World IP Day celebration by the NGX group of companies creates an opportunity to discuss recent innovations in the digital asset space, specifically the important role NFTs now play globally and in the lives of our Nigerian youths. Please allow me to introduce the next set of speakers. First, we will hear from Mr. Uche Chubo, founder of the Farmhouse Club, who will share insights on the theoretical aspects of NFTs as a digital asset. Afterwards, we will hear from Mr. Victor Olorunfemi, Head Branding and Communications, Bantu Blockchain Foundation, who will provide a practical context on the application of NFTs as a digital asset. I'm excited about today. I'm really looking forward to learning a lot today. And so without much ado, I now hand over the mic, as it were, to Mr. Uche Chubu. Over to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Irene, for that beautiful remark. We really appreciate your presence. We had a little tweaks here and there. So at this point, we just welcome Mr. Victor Olorunfemi, the Head of Branding and Communications at Bantu Blockchain Foundation, to take the keynote speech as we round off the first session of the program. Thank you very much once again, Irene. We truly appreciate your presence, man. Mr. Victor, please, over to you.
Hi, everyone. Good morning from Lagos, Nigeria. It's been a pleasure. It's been nice hearing from all the speakers. Mrs. Aziza Jibril, thank you very much, for sharing with us, what the regulators actually think about the space and the direction in which they're going. Mr. Toyin, thank you so much for your speech, and every other person that has spoken. We have a very, very short time to discuss something really practical, which is the heart of the subject today. I mean, the theme of this event is NFTs, the wild and the wonderful. So I think that I'm going to have to strip off a lot of stuff that I'd sort of prepared. But before I do that, let's do a very quick survey of the crowd that we have here, because that will help me be able to tailor whatever I'm saying properly. On a scale of 1 to 10, right? Just drop in the comment box how familiar you are with NFTs, with 1 being, 0 being not familiar, and 10 being I'm an expert. All right, just let me see what you're saying there in the comment section so that I would know how to be able to speak properly. So I see a 10, I see 7, I see 6, I see 0. While all those comments are dropping, I'll do a quick introduction of what Bantu Blockchain Foundation is about. I know people have said all kinds of things about digital assets, distributed ledger technology. When people talk about these things, they are more inclined, to think about foreign technologies, so to speak, because historically we've always loved to consume technologies, infrastructure from other parts of the world. and it puts us at a disadvantage in terms of the kind of understanding we can have on how these technologies work, the contributions we can make, and how we can be forward thinking, either as innovators or as regulators. So Bantu Blockchain Foundation is the first Africa-led distributed ledger technology infrastructure. It's not a product. It's not, it's not a product. It is a platform through which you and I and everybody here today, whether enterprises or human beings or other regular business people, the man on the street, will be able to create their own intellectual property, digitize, their time, digitize intellectual property, digitize real estate, digitize all kinds of things. All the innovations that are going to happen in what we call Web3 today is supported by Bantu Blockchain Foundation. And it's very critical, because in Africa, we need to be at the forefront of innovation. And what we've historically done, as you might have seen with the history of M-Pesa mobile money, is that when Africans come and adopt a technology, they hit the nail on the head. They let go of legacy stuff and try to solve problems. They go right to the heart of it, right? And that's why you can see that some of our technology, like our banking, our payment systems, are some of the most advanced in the world. So the same for Bantu Blockchain Foundation, which is that platform in which you're going to have all your digital assets, all the tokenization that's going on today. For example, there's a massive real estate tokenization project happening on Bantu Blockchain as we speak. There's an NFT marketplace coming on Bantu Blockchain as we speak, etc., etc. So now just going into the comment section. So I see a lot of 10, 5, 5, 4, 3, a couple of zeros, etc., etc. So that means that I will just assume that people here have a basic knowledge of NFTs, and I'll try as much as possible not to dwell too much. A very quick context. Unfortunately, I'm not able to share my screen. I don't know if someone can help me with that. For some reason, I'm not able to do that. But I'll just go ahead. As many of us here are familiar with assets, okay, good. I think I'm good. So let's do that. All right, can you see my screen? All right, good. NFTs, when you hear NFTs, what comes to your mind? I know we've said a lot of things, a lot of academic things, but what exactly comes to your mind when you hear NFTs? Typically, you have people thinking about things that have been done that has made people a lot of money, right? People think about, how somebody sold a certain NFT for a certain amount of money, and people seem to get carried away with all the money-making stories around NFTs. People get carried away with all the scams there, as well, but they really do not tend to understand the potential, of how this can shape, and change the world that we're living in today. All right. So I'm just going to go quickly. You can see the picture that I have here. Some of the most important discussions that we've had about NFTs in the last 1 year have been captured on this singular screen here. First and foremost, there was a story of a digital artist that sold something for about $63 million. And I think that kind of cast the spotlight on the space. And then we started to have all sorts of FOMO, all sorts of activity and attention being, cast into the space. And we had Jack Dorsey, the founder of Twitter, who, sold his first tweet on the marketplace for about $2.3 million. And people thought, okay, this is crazy. Why would anybody want to buy someone else's tweet? All right. And then we had, CryptoPunks, if you can see this guy with the blue bandana on the screen, which today still sells for over $100,000, a piece, some going for $2 million a piece. And we had the board, APR Club. We have all these funny looking, ugly, some would say ugly pictures selling for a lot of money. You wonder, why is this happening? Well, but typically when innovation comes, sometimes the memes, the comic factor, helps to bring a lot of attention into it. And then when that trend has died down a little bit, then you begin to have the real practical innovations happening. Because now people already understand what NFTs are. You're now able to introduce them into how can this change my life? All right. Some of you might have, heard or seen this picture. The picture of this old man I have here was a drummer where a youth corps member went and took, a picture of him and I put it on the marketplace, sold as an NFT, made over $1 million naira, so to speak, and then went ahead and presented him with half of those sales, etc., etc. And then you have a game card. And then you have this ugly little bird-like thing here, which was disruptive for the Philippines regulatory space, in that they saw an upsurge of millionaires in the Philippines, and they could not attribute their income to either fraud or some physical production or economic activities in the Philippines, right? These people turned out to be making money in the metaverse, making money in the gaming space, and the regulatory authority had to say, look, we don't know how it's going to be done, but you have to go and tax them. We need our share of the spoils. All right, so these are conversations that have happened in the last 1 year. Although NFCs have been a subject of discussion for as far back as 2012, 2013, and then became a bit more popular when the Ethereum blockchain launched in 2014, and then became really mainstream. Though I feel like we're still going to have like a major wave coming. Became mainstream from 2018 down to the current time that we're in. All right, so that's a bit that's sort of like giving us a bit of a history about NFTs. Now, assets, right? So what are NFTs at the very core? You're all familiar with assets, right? Assets are physical, digital. Let's just keep it like binary like that, physical, digital. And then we have, and you wonder, what does that fungible mean? Going through this sort of like, I hope that will help to trigger our discussions and imaginations as to what constitutes an NFT and what doesn't, all right? Fungibility just simply means that you are able to exchange a version of this particular thing to represent the other one. For example, you have your 1,000 Naira note. The 1,000 Naira notes, there's no two 1,000 Naira notes that have the same serial number, right? Some of them are actually even minted at different parts, different years. But whenever I take a 1,000 Naira note to a marketplace, it will always carry the value of 1,000 Naira. They are interchangeable. That is what fungible means, right? That's why you have the pictures here that I have about money, about tokens, chips, at a casino, for example, and gold bars, all right? And those are physical assets that are fungible, all right? When you come to non-fungible, these are physical assets, especially from this, of Southwest quadrant. These are physical assets that you can exchange, right? You can touch them, you can feel them, but you cannot, you cannot represent your school certificate. You cannot use it to represent another person. Otherwise, that will be fraud. Your school living certificate is unique to you and to you alone. All right. You cannot use it. Your brother cannot use it as his own. Right. Your land title deed, for example, a sculpture, a picture, a painting. These are unique assets that are non-fungible, even though they're physical. Now, when we move into the electronic or digital realm, and we have things like your Ethereum, your Bantu tokens that are fungible as well, just like money is. You can exchange one Bantu digital asset for another. Nobody will say, oh, but this one came into existence yesterday, while the other one came into existence 12 years ago. All right, and when you move to the Southeast quadrant, you have these items that I put in here, the NFTs especially, the Axie Infinity NFT, your digital school certificates, your tokenized land title deed. Right, these are things that are non-fungible. This is where the world is moving into, by the way. There's been a transition over the last decade of moving our attention from the physical into the digital. And thanks to COVID, that got accelerated a lot, right? More people spend their time and put their attention online. This is why this particular topic is actually very, very important and interesting. And innovators and regulators are likely to place a lot of attention to it. A lot of things are happening right under your nostrils. Your kids are living in an alternate universe, right? Without you even knowing, right? Through their games, through their phones, right? Just like I said, in the Philippines, a lot of millionaires sprung up and the government had no idea how that happened. Why? Because people are transitioning from a physical economy into a digital economy. And so every serious regulator and innovator and every serious enterprise needs to pay a lot of attention as to the activities and innovations that are happening in the digital space and ensure that they can be among the early adopters and be able to have an understanding of how to work in those places. I'm going to skip all the NFT lingo because I saw that most people are already, they have basic knowledge about NFTs. And I already kind of spoke about some of these stories, NFT stories. What I didn't speak about, which I may not spend so much time on, are some of the risks associated with this. As with anything digital, there is a heightened risk of cyber security issues, right? There is a heightened, risk of frauds. There's a heightened risk of loss of funds, significant loss of funds, which I believe is where some of the regulatory authorities come in and try to sort of play a big brother role to ensure that people, investors, and otherwise are protected. But this is a reality that we cannot escape. The world continues to move deeper and deeper into the metaverse, deeper and deeper into the digital space, deeper and deeper. Attention keeps going. All the big tech are fighting for your attention, all right? Most people now spend most of their time on their phones, right, than they do in real life. That's just to show you that people have shifted attention from the physical into the physical. People will brag now about having a blue tick on their Twitter and Instagram, right? People now care more about digital property, digital IP, followers, you know, their voice in the metaverse, you know, than they do about maybe the Rolexes and some of the other physical things that you have, all right? So there's a serious paradigm shift happening as we speak today, right? And so that's why NFTs, you know, as digital assets must be taken seriously. But beyond all the fanfare, beyond all the crypto punks and the bored apes and the pictures and the tweets and all of these things, what are some things that we can actually do with NFTs? I put a slide here that shows you the creation process, show that everybody here, anybody here can create an NFT. It is nothing extraordinary. It's nothing out of the blues, right? And I'm sure that when Bantu is done releasing its NFT marketplace, it will even be easier for the regular person on the street to be able to convert their intellectual property, whether it be their artwork or their musical piece or a video that's shot somewhere, or their domain names, or any other intellectual property they have, into, you know, NFTs, and ensure that they are able to maintain ownership. All right, they're able to ensure that even when these properties get transferred, they can, in perpetuity, earn royalties. How do people create NFTs? It's pretty simple, right? You upload your digital asset that you've created, you choose a marketplace. All right, so I have some examples here again. Unfortunately, I can't really delve deep into this. You connect what is called your digital wallet, right? In the case of Bantu, it will be your Bantu Pay wallet. In the case of Ethereum, it could be your MetaMask wallet, and etc., etc. You connect your wallet to the marketplace. You upload that IP, right? You upload it to the platform. Now, what makes it non-fungible? You ask me, why is a picture different from another picture? Right? Once a picture is uploaded to something that is called the interplanetary file system, right? That picture is encoded, you know, as the first and true source of that particular asset, right? And so whenever that asset is going to be posted again online, uploaded again online, there is a mechanism, you know, a digital way in which the consensus, the protocol that's being used to verify assets will say, no, this already exists and belongs to someone. So imagine if you are going to tokenize your real estate, your land title deed, all right? Nobody would forge that property and put it online and say, look, I have the same copy. Think about some of the practical things that NFTs will do. And I hope that I'm able to touch on some of those things in the next slide. All right, I'm just going to skip again all of this stuff because it's not necessarily like a training session. I'm just going to go into trends and predictions so that we can, you know, move into the next section. At the moment, we have a lot of flex happening. When I say flex, what do I mean? People are buying or delving into NFTs to be able to say that they belong to an elite club of people, right? Why would somebody spend $1 million on a picture of an ape, for example, right? They want, just like if someone would say, why would anybody buy a $1 million wristwatch, right? Why would you buy that, right? But it gives you a certain feeling of belonging to an elite club, to an exclusive, you know, group of people, right? It gives people, there's such a thing as the vanity industry, all right, where people will pay a lot for stuff that do not fundamentally have more practical meaning or use case to the other substitutes, but they'll pay because it shows that they belong to a certain elite club. These are why people pay. This is why rather people pay a lot of attention to luxury items, all right, luxury groups. They're not necessarily, from a practical perspective, doing more, right? Your Rolex wristwatch is not necessarily going to tell you when you're going to die or anything of that nature, but you wear one. You carry an expensive bag, even though it will do, you carry a $2,000 bag, even though a $50 bag might, you know, perform the same function, because it does. So we're in a flex territory where people are simply just buying these things, that people buy pieces of art to show that, oh, they own one of the only 10 in collections in the world. They belong to the elite group of people that have, you know, a limited edition of things. All right, art and IP. Now that is already shaping up. We're already seeing people posting their artwork, All right, that is to me, even a more practical, use case. We've had people, I've watched documentaries of people who said they've never sold their physical painting for anything maybe more than $100,000 naira before, but today are able to sell collections for over $5,000, over $10,000, right? Thanks to this digital technology, in which they're able to tokenize their creative work, and they're able to put it on a platform that is now exposed to people around the globe, not just in their local streets where they have their artwork and write, maybe fencing studios and put their number or something there. Now they have the platform to be able to showcase all that they've got, and they're able to get true value for it. And they're also able to maintain that the original idea came from them. All right, so you have art and IP. So this also applies to music samples. This also applies to even video clips. All of you might have heard during COVID period, there was a very popular meme back then, the pallbearers, where it was trending on Twitter and TikTok and Instagram, where something happened and people you'd see these, Ghanaian pallbearers, carrying the caskets, and then this astronomical sound, in the background. That thing, became a cultural, it became a meme. It became something that everybody was using. But those who created it, the only value they got was satisfaction that everybody was using their meme. Today, thanks to NFTs, they were able to take that particular creativity to the market, and they were able to sell it for, a couple of $100,000s. Right? The same thing today. You have a picture, the picture of, Charlie. There was a video picture of a baby that beat, the elder brother, that did the rounds, became very popular. Prior to now, the kind of satisfaction you had was that, okay, you got 1 million views, maybe Google paid you a little amount for driving traffic to their platform. But today, you're able to convert that value, that thing you created, into, monetary value. And what's good? That item can also be transferred. Any other person that's interested, it can also purchase it and become an owner of it. And guess what? The original person that came up with the idea, because NFTs are programmable, can say, whenever this thing gets sold, I still want to be getting 2% out of it. Regardless, I don't need to know who's buying it. I don't need to know. Sell it to 100 people, I don't care. The program, the smart contract ensures that you constantly get rewarded for your intellectual property. So we're moving from Flex. Flex will continue to remain there because people will always want to own exclusive, items. But we're also now starting to see a proliferation of people who are building, who are posting their artwork, their photography, and things that are getting value for it. Collectibles. This you see in games. The gaming industry is, I'm going to take this collectible and games together. The gaming industry is one that people are taking for granted. I once heard a story of a man who I think earns maybe just about 250, earns about 250,000 naira salary, goes out to hustle for the family, and then during a holiday, obviously, bought a game for his kid. And then in playing those games, the kid, because of some in-game transactions, was able to do win a couple of tasks, and thanks to game finance technology, what people call GameFi today, earned close to about over $2,000 there, and then kept telling the father, how can I please, can you help me to convert this, and the father kept saying, Junior, just leave me alone, I'm hustling, have you done your assignments, etc., etc., etc. The father is going out trying to hustle and make sure that everybody's happy. But the boy kept persisting. Daddy, I think, we can convert this into real, physical financial value. Eventually the father decided to, let me just listen to this kid so that this kid can stop disturbing me. And I realized that this kid had made, like I said, over $2,000-3,000 just playing games, completing tasks online, whereas he would go for the whole month, get into the Lagos traffic and all of that stuff, have his, brain fried in the sun, all of that stuff, earning just about $500. But the kid sitting down here, just because the kid is living in the world that we're moving to ahead of the parents, all right, has sat down here and just by virtue of playing games and doing certain things, earned, over $3,000. Now the man had to say, Junior, please come, sit down and show me, what did you do to earn this? What would you like daddy to get for you so that you can focus your attention during this holiday, to let's see how we can make more, of this. All right, that is the world we're living in today. GameFi is becoming more explosive. The more people spend time at home, work from home, the more people want to spend more time on the internet, the more people realize that they are able to actually earn a lot of money just by playing games, or just by doing activities, just by hanging out with virtual friends. and doing things. All right, so that is a space that regulators and people need to be more conversant with. Otherwise, we will be here discussing about the physical aspects, and there's a parallel and alternative world happening right under our noses with a lot of economic activity going on, and with a lot of scams as well, happening. Digital ID, all right, I mentioned this before, where I said another practical application of NFTs will be your digital certificates, will be your digital ID, where you're able to tokenize your digital identity. You're able to take it along with an NFT that is portable across all kinds of platforms. All right, and I'm about to round up. So all platforms, you're able to carry your digital identity. People, your drivers, your criminal history, for example, your academic records, all of those things can be carried, along, and you can choose who you want to share this with online, what website you want to have access to this, right? And nobody can forge your identity or forge your certificate. There will be very little identity theft because you are the sole person that carries this identity and is able to give access to people on how this will work. And finally, like I mentioned before, we're starting to have what tokenized title deeds. Think about this. One man today sells the same piece of land to people, to like 5 different people, and all of them have to fight it out amongst themselves in the court of arbitration, for example. And some will use even jungle justice methods to become to become triumphant in terms of ownership. When land title deeds begin to get digitized, just like I said previously, right, it becomes the sole ownership of one person, such that when you're transferring one property to another person, it is signified or indicated or demonstrated by you simply transferring the NFT or digitized version of the land title to the other person. So only the person that owns that digital asset will be able to lay claim of the land. There will be no need for cases that will argue it. Do you have proof that this belongs to you? Right? If you do, then show it. If you do not, then you do not own the property. So that already in itself solves a lot of problems and disrupts positively, I hope, a certain sector of the economy, and solves a lot of problems, for people who take it seriously. So these are just a few trends and predictions about this space, and I think that this is probably a good time to allow us to be able to segue into the next section. Again, I try to keep this as simple as possible, not really go in depth into how to create these things, but just so that you have an understanding of what NFT stand for, beyond all the glitz, beyond all the spending a lot of money, beyond all the trying to flip to have to spend more money, to make money. You buy this and sell it for 2x, 3x. This is really going to change and transform our lives. Today, people are buying pieces of land in the metaverse. It sounds stupid, but guess what? Wherever there is activity and traffic, the big brands will pay a lot of money to advertise their brands. And so there will be a lot of economic activity in those places. So imagine that you had a piece of land. I'm not advocating for you to go and buy pieces of land. This is by no means financial advice, but let's just imagine, right? Like I said, esports and e-gaming is becoming a very big deal around the globe. It's a multi-billion-dollar enterprise around the globe. And you own a piece of property, for example, right? And there was going to be a digital car race, electronic car race, section that was going to happen there, where you have the likes of Mercedes and other big brands happening. You own that property. For them to be able to fly their digital, mast or their digital flags or whatever on your property, they will need to pay you a lot of money, right? So this.
Okay, Victor, thank you very much, Victor. I'm so sorry to interrupt you at this point. We need to round up the session because of the next things we have lined up. Thank you.
So this is a good place for me to stop, and I would gladly hand over the microphone back to the moderator. Thank you very much. Yep.
Thank you very much, Victor. Thank you for that detailed explanation, and then for really explaining it to all of us. At this point, I'd like attendees to please listen carefully and also look at the chat box, because we have something special for you. So we have the Bantu Pay wallets, just everything that Victor has just explained. For attending this program, you have the opportunity to download the Bantu Pay wallet and register an account. The Bantu Pay wallet allows you a non-custodial wallet for safe storage and transfer of all digital assets on the Bantu blockchain. There will be an airdrop of Bantu digital assets XBN to the attendees of this webinar. So feel free, if you are interested in keeping or using the digital assets, you can feel free to download this Bantu Pay wallet. Thank you so much. And also feel free to keep dropping your questions, because we have a session mapped out to answer and address all your questions. So at this point, we'll wrap up the first session, like I explained, and I'd like to thank all the speakers. A very special thank you would go to our very own special person, Mrs. Irene Robinson Ayowanle. She's the divisional head for the Business Support Services Division, and she's also the General Counsel. So whatever you are seeing today, she's like our power bank. She's the brains we always run to pick and then get ideas. So whatever you are seeing today is like her brainchild. Thank you very much, Irene, for the support and all the energy. Thanks a lot. Okay, so we'll move on to the panel session. And I'd like to welcome the founder of the Wi-Fi Combat Academy, Mrs. Dele Toju-Osho, should be moderating the second session of this program. So sit back, relax, and enjoy your stay. Thank you. Mrs. Dele Toju-Osho.
Yes, please. So can you hear me, please? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. So good morning, distinguished guests, the panelists, and other guests that came for this program. This panel is going to be very interesting. The questions that we want to ask, we want to learn more. I really learned a lot from what Mr. Victor said, in the fact that the physical economy has moved to the digital economy, and we need to understand that landscape. And that's why we're having this panelist. So we have like 3 guests. Let me just quickly share my screen. I just did something. I just did this for everyone to see. Sorry. I'll soon remove it, but I just wanted to make it interesting. So we have our 3 panelists. So we have Mr. Victor again. We're going to ask more questions so he can enlighten us. So what he just did was just a brief introduction of what NFTs are, but we're going to go deep into NFTs. Then we have this young lady, Mary Jane Ozudima. She's just 19 years old, and she's now a player within the NFT space. She's been able to create beautiful collections, and she's been able to sell it. And then I was even surprised that Twitter bought her collections. So she's here to tell us her wonderful story. And then we have Mr. Aziz, who's going to talk more about how do we trade. How do we trade on the NFT? Is it worth it, or is it not worth it? So let me go to the speaker again. I'm going to talk to Mr. Victor, and I'm going to ask questions. So before then, I would like to talk a bit about his profile. So Mr. Victor is working with a team of brilliant Pan-African techpreneurs to crash the cost of remittance to and within Africa, leveraging on blockchain and other exponential technologies, whilst also ensuring that Africans can travel from one country to another using only one currency of choice. Following the successful execution of his ambitious project, this team will be working on simplifying the exchange of services within Africa, thus enhancing the employability of more young African talents and expanding Africa's gig economy. Victor is also part of the Bantu Blockchain Foundation, whose vision is to become the largest distributed network infrastructure with the most decentralized governance model for wealth creation and economic sovereignty for humanity. Previously, Victor led the tax technology and innovation operating unit for PwC Nigeria, where he and his team created a best-in-class digital tax and procedure for Nigeria. Victor was responsible for designing and implementing other technology solutions for the firm and clients. Victor is an AXT technology enthusiast with a background in the science, instruments, new technologies. Victor has been involved in the blockchain space since 2016 and has supported some African projects in the blockchain space in an advisory capacity. So Mr. Victor, you're welcome. So I'm going to ask questions. So let me just stop sharing. Yeah, let me just stop sharing so that you can come on board. Okay. So the questions I want to ask, you've really answered a lot of questions. You're able to distinguish what non-fungible tokens and tokens are. So you've already asked some of my questions, but some of the questions that I want to talk about is that non-fungible tokens seems to have exploded out of years, from arts to music to games, and having a big assets of over millions of dollars. But the question that I want to ask is that are NFTs worth the money, or is it just a hype? Some experts say that they're a bubble, poised on pop like the dot-com craze. Others believe NFTs are here to stay and that they will change investing forever. The question that I'm asking you is, we recently noticed that the Twitter quotes by the founder of Twitter sold for millions of dollars. And when they were trying to reset it, the buyer was about to reset it, the market share, it just slumped. And I don't think can even sell over $100,000. So that's why I'm asking you, is NFT worth the money, or is it just a hype? So we'd like you to talk more about that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So to paraphrase your question, the man thought he was buying Rolls Royce, but in the end could only sell it for the price of fufu. NFTs, the NFT market is a pretty liquid market, right? It's very subjective, right? There's an analogy I like to make, and it was something someone told me when I was in university and said, do you know that you can sell a $20 handkerchief for 500 naira? And I thought, are you going to blow powder on someone's face and tell them buy for 500 naira? Or what exactly are you going to do? And he said, just create a story around it. You know, tell someone how this handkerchief signifies, you know, their love for their partner and how it signifies, you know, clean heart, blah, blah, blah. Put a few roses, tie some ribbons, package it as the proposal handkerchief or something of that nature, all right? And watch how people automatically, you know, change their minds. You know, it's amazing how the human mind can be easily programmed or reprogrammed and start doing the same thing. What happens where, you know, where someone, this is an example. You also have examples in maybe even the religious space, right? Where they say maybe a preacher has done something on a particular handkerchief and it becomes immediately more relevant or more valuable, so to speak, so people who are watching than if they are just going to buy the same thing on the street. It's always about the story around it. When you're buying it, you're buying into a story that someone has created and told you. When you're selling it, does that story still exist? Are you able to create a superior story? If not, then I'm sorry. The NFT you bought for $1 million, so people might not be willing to buy it from you for more than $100. All right. So when you say do NFTs have value, it's almost like saying, does artwork have value? Someone wraps uses duct tape to tape a banana on a white background, and it sells for a ridiculous amount of money. And you wonder, I use a banana on white painting with you know, duct tape. How does that make any sense? But whoever was buying that was probably buying into the idea of the person, for example, who created the art, the stories that was created around it, where it was auctioned, right? And that's the reason why you see that some NFT marketplaces, you know, seem to be more successful than others, because they have liquidity. They are popular. People expect that whatever you have from this particular marketplace is top range. All right. So it is not a right or wrong answer. It is not to say whether it's a bubble or not. It is just to let people know that whenever they are dealing with NFTs, it is a very illiquid market. And whatever you have bought for $1 million, the fact that you bought it for $1 million does not mean the other person is willing to buy it from you at that particular amount of money. It's not a practical, it's not like buying Apple and then you want to sell the Apple at a premium. You've bought a picture, a painting. The other person might not see the thing that there's a funny, sorry, I'm just going to wrap it. There's a funny thing, video I watched online where this person, was doodling something on a table. I was a secretary, I was a receptionist at a gallery, and then people were coming to buy, artworks for $500, $500,000, 500,000 naira, 20,000 naira. And somebody saw what she was doodling and said, wow, this is ingenious. This is so different. Can I pay you, 100,000 for this? And then she thought, is this man stupid? Who wants to pay me 100,000 for something I'm doing out of boredom? And then the Lagos, sense in her just came and said, no, this thing, no, 100,000 is too small for this thing. And the man kept pushing. And then they were somewhere around 500,000. And the lady was still pushing her luck. Now, if this man is so hungry to buy this thing for me at this price, let me see where, he would not be able to push it, any further. And then something interrupted them. And the man had to go ahead, got distracted and bought another piece. And the next person who came, the lady now thought, well, I've missed out. Let me try and sell it to this other person. And the person said, are you mad? We are selling something that my child can do with crayon. You want to sell it to me at 500K? Do I look stupid to you? So this is just a subjective market. It's not necessarily about bubbles. Bubbles happen because there's a hype, there's mania, right? That is there. But the market is here to stay, and people will always pay what they feel something is worth, at any point in time. And so I hope that helps. I hope that answers it. I think you're on mute.
So it's more of like the value that you see in what you're
subjective value based on beliefs. Mm-hmm.
So the second question that I want to ask is that the power of storytelling has created famous NFTs to sell millions of dollars. The famous digital artist Mike Winkelmann, better known as People, created a composite of 5,000 daily drawings to create perhaps the most famous NFT. That was in 2020. That went for a staggering $69.3 million. How does storytelling impact the popularity and the value of NFT projects? Because one thing I know, storytelling, the other day we talked about assets, the importance of storytelling and assets. So I'd like you to expatiate together with this asset stuff that people have been talking about.
So storytelling is what makes us unique as a species, our ability to tell stories. This is the reason why ideas sometimes, survive the people who created them, right? This is the reason why you have institutions that have lived and survived for 200, 500, 1,000 years, 2,000 years, even though those who originally created the idea, they're long gone and their bones even turned to dust, all right? So storytelling is what makes us unique. Like I said, like when I use the analogy of the handkerchief, right? The same handkerchief, I can give you value just by simply telling a story, about it. Storytelling is what people do, for example, on their CVs to project themselves, certain light. This is the reason why someone who's not very good practically, hands-on, will pass an interview at the expense of someone who's probably even better qualified for the job because they've been able to sell themselves properly, right? That is what differentiates us as humans. We're able, everything that you see today, this event you're having today is a function of storytelling. You simply said, NGX is celebrating World IP Day. You want to do this, you sold the story, and all the 100+ people on this platform believed that story and decided to key into it. And that's why we're all here today. So it's all a function of the kind of story you can tell. And about storytelling is not just about the quality of the content, because there are people who are very good, but do not have the platform or the exposure. Storytelling also has to do with the pedestal that you're standing on when you're telling the story, right? A simple retweet of your story from someone who has millions of followers can turn around the value that your story has. Is it that has it changed the meaning of your story or the lesson of the story? It hasn't. It has simply given it more visibility. So storytelling has to do with the content and has to do with the platform in which you're able to project, that story to other people. So yeah, storytelling, it doesn't apply just to NFTs, it applies to everything that we do as humans, but even more so, something that is subjective, such as NFTs. So for you, those of you who aspire to create, digital assets, you must be willing not to just put something there and hope that people will just receive some kind of inspiration and say, I want to buy this piece. You must be willing to be able to evoke feelings, emotional feelings, evoke something in them that when they see it, even though they are not seeing you, they feel a certain connection towards it and they're willing, to contribute to it. And someone had asked before that, is this just about art? So this is not just about art. It's just about anything of value, anything that is unique to you. exactly. Storytelling is the reason why people want to pay much more for a .com domain than they would maybe for another extension, right? Because people have perceived and people have agreed that for you to have a .com domain, there's a certain level of hierarchy, there's a certain level of value that it has, right? So like I said, we are all, what separates us as species is storytelling, the ability to tell stories. And so that is why it's important to this particular discussion. And it's all down to how you're able to evoke feelings or use your words to create desire amongst the other person who's going to be consuming from the other end. Thank you.
Yeah. And then I want to ask another question. And it has to do, where do you begin if you want to break into the space? And what
Sorry, say that again.
Where do you want to begin if you want to break into the NFT space?
Mm-hmm.
And what makes a good NFT project in the first place?
Mm-hmm. Well, if you want to break into the NFT space, I want to assume that you're referring to the current.
Is a strong indication. An NFT. Yeah, I've not finished the question. So what I'm saying is that, and also community is a strong indication of how successful an NFT can be. So what has community to do with breaking into the NFT space, belonging to a community?
Yeah. So I want to assume that you're referring to, the current wave, of NFTs where people are, the pictures and the PFPs, profile pictures, and all of that. Communities are another key. Remember when I said storytelling, but you need to have a platform of people who are listening to your story.
Yes.
Right? If you don't have people who are listening to your story, then your story is just as good as the next person who's listening to your story. Right? So that is why people who are coming up with NFT projects try as much as possible to either use marketing agencies to be able to reach out to prospective community of people who want to get involved, or they use guerrilla tactics or growth hacking tactics to create a community that will anticipate their drops, anticipate the NFTs that they want to release. When you create a community and you incentivize those community by telling them that the more participation they make and the more referrals they make, the higher their chances of getting free versions of those NFTs. They will go, crazy for you and begin to talk to their friends and begin to and the more people get to know about it, the more popular it becomes. So it's almost like you're creating a viral network of people who will now be able to see what you're offering, and that increases your chances of being able to exchange it or sell it for more valuable amounts than if only 3 people knew about it. So yes, so people invest in community. So how do you, the first one of the question was, how do you get started? You get started by education. I think that's probably some of the things that we're doing today. But education does not stop at this seminar. Education continues on YouTube, right? Continues on Twitter. So unfortunately, I may not be able to drop names, but you have to just simply go and Google the leading NFT subject matter experts or content creators on Google, on YouTube and on Twitter. You find them mostly on those spaces. And then for every NFT project, there is almost always a Discord channel where the community comes together to talk about the project, to anticipate the date of listing, to anticipate every other information about who's lucky, who has been able to get whitelisted or get some space. All right. So to learn about this space, to get into it, you have to really to invest in education, which thankfully, for all of us is free. You can get them on YouTube today, and you can follow the subject matter experts on Twitter who make it their bread and butter to find out the right side of information. On the slides, if the slides will be circulated, I also dropped some tools that people can use to look for information about NFTs, where they can easily get alerts as to the latest projects coming up and, the trending projects coming up. I hope that helps. Mrs. Omadele, Mr. Omadele. You're on mute. You're muted now.
Please, I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
So you're talking about land, this virtual land or metaverse and can guide, and and there's someone saying that on the metaverse like Sandbox, you can actually create your fashion line, and you can now sell them on the Sandbox. So what's the relationship between NFTs and the metaverse? Because it's like there's no, I can't say that it's parallel. They have to work. They're working together.
Yeah.
So tell me, because it's an innovation, and where's this taking us to?
Yeah. So think of the metaverse the way you think of the world today. I'm trying to use an analogy. Think of NFTs as the items that you see in the world today. Your wig, your certificate, your house, your car, all of those things. In the metaverse, we have those digital assets today. I know there was a time, the first time I played around in a certain metaverse called Decentraland, I was running into a lot of people, right? But when you come into that particular space, maybe you're all wearing the same clothes. Now people want to, or you're looking the same. Now people want to start looking different and giving themselves an identity. Just like we don't like to blend in the world, and we want to stand out, right? People want to look good. People want to, feel good, right? So in those spaces, you have people who now say, look, I want to look different from the next person. I want to buy a haircut. What they call, for those who are familiar with gaming parlance, skin, what they call skin. You'll be amazed that your children do not want you to buy them clothes, physical clothes again, or physical sneakers. They want you to give them money to buy skin in games so that they can look good when they are meeting with their friends in the metaverse, when they are attending concerts in the metaverse. It sounds ridiculous, but that is what is happening today. They say, I want to buy skin, right? And what does skin refer to? Their looks, what they're wearing, their gear, right? They want to look different. They want to show it off to their friends and say, have you seen my jacket? I remember that day. I mean, I was taking that, stroll around, just looking around, playing around, that metaverse. And then I told one of my friends, who's, big in this, this subject as well. He said, dude, let me lend you my jacket, so you look, I'm like, jacket. Like, I don't have gas fees to pay for collecting jacket from you. I'm just here to play. And then guess what? He eventually sold this jacket for a lot of money to somebody who thought wearing a jacket in that space makes him look cooler than everybody wearing the t-shirts, and looking a certain way. So the same way, even for games, when you're playing games, there are locations in games. When you're playing games, you probably see this particular house there in that game. Everybody comes across this particular house. Everybody passes this particular field. Everybody passes a particular forest. Everybody, people want to buy, items in those games. And those items, a lot of times, there's only one type of it. They are non-fungible, right? So these are things that people use to be relevant in those worlds, all right? So NFTs in those places are like what normal real assets are like to us in the real world. So if more people are paying attention to that metaverse world and spending more of their time there, you best believe that they want to look different. The same way they are paying today for blue ticks to look different on Instagram and Twitter, right? It's going to mean a lot to people that, look, I own this house, this property everybody's passing by. After all, maybe potentially in this game, the game will make it such that anybody that wants to pass by this house will pay a particular toll fee. And if I own this property, I'll be the one getting all that toll fee. So it's a paradigm shift, like I said. So NFTs in the metaverse are like what, real life items, remember when I was trying to show us physical, non-fungible items, right, in the real world. So the same way NFTs are like that in the metaverse. And that's the interplay. So the metaverse is the world itself. NFTs are like the items in those worlds that are unique, right, to individuals, yeah.
So thank you so much.
Does that make sense?
Thank you so much, yeah. So the thing is that so many brands, I'm just saying in conclusion, we're beginning to see how Nike and Starbucks and, these big companies, they're all buying space on the metaverse so that people can buy these non-fungible tokens. And it's just amazing where the world is. And whether we like it or not, that's a new world. That's it. And we can't take it away. And that's where our kids go to. I mean, we have kids that they're on Roblox. And already you're looking at how, if you've seen that, you're beginning to see how brands are trying to get into Roblox so that people can buy,
Yes,
they can buy lots of things. And that's an example of metaverse and the NFTs working together. So companies are trying to see how they can monetize that environment.
Absolutely.
So it's important that we begin to understand this new frontier technology and see how we can benefit from it. And how we can even monetize ourselves. We can't just be blind, to what's going on, but that is the future. Absolutely. I want to say a big thank you so much for coming, Mr. Victor. Thank you for coming, and just stay around because questions, we're going to have questions, and I know some people would like to ask questions.
Sure thing.
We have a second speaker, Let me just share this. Yeah, thank you so much. So we have our second speaker, and that's Mr. Aziz. So I want to quickly talk about his profile. Okay, sorry. Yeah, so that's it here. Okay. So Mr. Hafiz Romana, he's the head data and digital innovation for NGX. Okay. So Mr. Hafiz Romana is a technological inclined person with knowledge of the financial services industry. He's a graduate of the Computer Science and Economics OAU, Betty Fair. Hafiz started his career at SWJ, where he built and supported banking solutions and integration into the popular financial core. Hafiz delved into brokerage technology in 2011 when he joined one of the leading brokerage software companies, Zenabo. He garnered some knowledge of the capital markets of Zanzibar and deployed solutions for top broker banks and insurance services. Hafiz later fully joined the heart of the capital markets in 2012, where he started as the development lead on the implementation of the NASDAQ QMX trading platform at then NSE. In 2017, Hafiz moved into market services department as data technology led in acting capacity in 2018. Today, after the demutualization of the exchange and the birth of the NGX group, Hafiz is now the head data and digital innovation at NGX. Hafiz combines technical skills with people and project management. He is a hands-on technology manager with knowledge of Java and Spring frameworks, fixed protocols, databases, database relational, and NoSQL. So welcome, sir. You're welcome, sir. Let me just stop sharing and I'll just go straight to the questions. So you're welcome, sir. You're welcome. So we would like to what's mostly NFT trading, especially from the consumer angle. We already have someone who's going to talk about being an artist within the NFT space. But if I want to play in the market, just like cryptocurrency, people are buying cryptocurrency. What does it take for me to be able to trade within the NFT space? Okay, so I had a question, but it's like Mr. Victor had already answered it, but let's just go straight to the question because of time. So the question I want to ask is, what is NFT trading and how do you trade NFTs on the blockchain?
All right, thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. And I appreciate all the participants and all the presenters who have come presented beautifully ahead of me. I would like to say trading from the perspective of trading any instruments. It requires understanding of that instrument before investment. For starters, yeah, if you are looking at investment from the the regular investment perspective, you will look at NFT as something that looks like a misnomer, because NFT by themselves are not exactly asset classes. NFT uses blockchain technology to digitally signify ownership, making it more like like a title, to a house or a title to a car rather than the car itself. So for anyone that is interested and that has done the due diligence, understanding that space, that it's an investment that is powered by emotive quality, human psychology, rather than some statistics as it applies in regular security trading like stocks and bonds. The first place to start is to identify the market space, the marketplace. There are marketplaces out there, and which this entity can also become a market place for NFT at some point. Then create a wallet. There are wallets that relies on the blockchain technology, and fund the wallet. So there are 5 steps. Identify the marketplace where you want to play, then create your wallet, then fund your wallet, and then you browse the marketplace for the collections that appeal to your psychology, that you can value based on your psychology, because it's more about emotion. So then you purchase. Then purchase by minting or creating the NFT. So for trading NFT, there are conditions that you consider. Yeah, and they are different from regular conditions or statistics you look at when you are trading regular security like stocks and bonds. So those are the 5 steps. Identify the marketplace, create a digital wallet, then fund the wallet, then browse the marketplace for collections that appeal to your desire, then purchase. That's the process as it goes. Thank you. It appears you're on mute.
Sorry. So how do we identify the market space? You have open seas, there are different places where you can buy. So can you explain more and tell us the most popular place where people go and buy, and what's the reason?
Right. So open seas account for as much as 90% or more of collection for NFT, and there are other marketplaces like Rarible, Mintable, where you can buy collections. But OpenSea, due to the support available and the long list of FAQ, where you can see list of questions and you get them answered. These are reasons OpenSea become more and most popular among all the available marketplaces to buy NFTs.
Okay, yeah. So the cryptocurrency you're using for your wallet, which one is the most popular one, and how much?
Of course, the most popular one with the NFT is built on is the Ethereum cryptocurrency, and it's if you want to buy an NFT, you can go as low as 0.000 anything that you are buying on it. So it can be as cheap as anything. You can even get as airdrop, like Bantu is giving to some of our participants on this platform. Airdrop, it's like a free digital token, just sent to you like a gift. So that's what airdrop is. So Ethereum is the most popular, built on the blockchain technology. Yeah.
So the next question that I want to ask, if you are keen to start owning an NFT collection on the blockchain, how do you go about trading? Which brings more investment, newly minted NFTs or second-handed value NFTs? We saw how Twitter, when they bought Twitter, it cost so millions of dollars. But by the time when it was resold, it went down to less than $100,000. So which one is a better investment? Newly minted NFTs or second-handed value NFTs?
Oh, okay, interesting. And this really there is no yes or no, there's no newly minted or second hand. It depends basically on the investment horizon. If you understand the concept of NFT valuation being something that is based on human psychology. So if the way I perceive something, I can buy this pen for 5 naira because it appeals to my to my psychology. Then you can say, this pen, I just bought it yesterday for 2 naira. But you can argue like that because it's pen that has a market that determines its value. But for something that appeals to me, it's like a mother to child relationship. No mother can love a child the way the mother of that child will love that. There's that emotional connection. There's that psychological relationship. There's a way that you value something that you want. For example, Nigerians leave Nigeria to go and watch, football in the UK. But if you look at it from other perspective, some people wonder why. Just like some wonder why do you have to sit down and be watching some people playing football, but you can see the emotion attached to the game of football. So that is how NFT plays. So if you are looking at okay, which one do we buy? It depends on the investment horizon of the person that is buying it. And there is a concept as one of the few constants in the NFT market is the fear of missing out on the next major projects. So let me give you an instance on the popular collection on OpenSea, which is BAYC. Some relatively unknown NFT were launched in April 2021 at 0.08 Ethereum. That's about $239 dollars as at that time, April 2021. About a year after, when Steve Curry and Jimmy Fallon started, acquiring collection of art around this NFT, the price jumped to $260,796 today. So you see the emotion attached to this. So it's like see Ronaldo advertising something and one Hafiz Ramon advertising. The difference will be like attached to. That's why celebrities power the value of this thing, because they are they appeal to the mentality of the human being, or especially their fans. So that's a bit about it.
Now there's a question I had already asked Mr. Victor, but I want to hear your own perspective.
Okay, sorry, everyone. Yes, I'm so sorry we have to cut you short, Mrs. Deletojo Show. Because of our time, we might not be able to continue with the panel session. We can't keep people waiting, so we'll move straight to the closing remarks at this point. But for all the questions, we'll create an opportunity for people to just drop in their questions. We'll be able to answer them or contact them individually. Thank you very much. Really, really appreciate your time. So at this point, we'll have to move over to the closing remark. I'm so sorry about this. I don't know. Okay, so we invite our very own Mrs. Mojisola Adiola, the company secretary and compliance for the Nigerian Exchange Group PLC, to give us the closing remark for the day. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nkem, and thank you very much, everyone. I would like to, on behalf of the management of Nigerian Exchange Group of companies, appreciate the key stakeholders who have made this event a reality. I would start by appreciating the insightful presentations from our regulators, the Securities and Exchanges Commission and NGX regulation. It was indeed a privilege to receive first-hand insight on regulatory directions for NFTs and other digital assets within the capital markets and indeed across the financial industry as a whole. We would also like to commend our partners, Bantu Blockchain Foundation and Wi-Fi Combat Academy, who through their presentation today have demonstrated their leadership in the NFT space. Our gratitude also goes to our speakers who have taken time out to share their valuable insights in today's session. We would also like to thank you very, very much, our wonderful audience, for your patience, for joining us across various online platforms, and for making this session very, very interactive. We can see that you have sent in a lot of questions, and indeed Nkem had to cut it short because of our time. Thank you for making our time today to be part of this session. This webinar was hosted to demonstrate how young inventors, creators, and entrepreneurs can use intellectual property rights, most especially new digital assets such as NFTs, to achieve their goals, generate income, create jobs, tackle local and global challenges, and support community and national development. In addition, the session aimed to showcase the potential of leveraging digital assets to deliver innovative financial products for the capital markets and the financial industry as a whole. I dare say that these objectives have been met and indeed exceeded, through the invaluable contributions of our speakers today, and also of you, the wonderful audience that have made this very interactive. I thank you very much for listening and wish you a very productive rest of the day. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Mojisola Adiola, and thank you everyone for joining in. So at this point, we would collect all the questions and then we'll have to address them directly before our time runs out. Okay, so can we invite Mary Jane? Mary Jane, please, can you come up? Because of the theme of the event for today, and we didn't get the opportunity to ask you some questions. Please, can we invite Mary Jane to kindly introduce herself and then just give us a brief analysis of all she does presently in the next 5 minutes, then we'll wrap up the program. Thank you.
Hello everyone. Hi everyone. Good morning, good afternoon. My name is Mary Jane, and I'm a digital artist and illustrator from Lagos, Nigeria. And I've been into the world of NFT, and I'm still into the world of NFT, which I started last year, October. And I just took out my time to learn more about what NFT was and just get as much information and knowledge on this technology that was ever growing. And so once I came into the space, I got an NFT community, and these are very good communities to learn and just have your ground stand on what NFTs are and just build up your knowledge on how to go about it. And so furthermore on that, after 2 months of my journey in the NFT space, I started to drop my first collection on OpenSea. And I chose OpenSea because it was more available to people at that time. It's very open, and a lot of people find it easier to mint on that platform than some other platform. So I put my first collection on OpenSea, which was very successful. After that, I decided to drop my second collection January. And it so happened that when I dropped that collection, based on how everything was and with support of the community and people getting to learn more about the collection, Twitter happened to buy into that collection because they saw the value in it, and that just drove a lot of other people to see the visibility of it and just come into the collection and buy from it. And so far, it's just been a groundbreaking opportunity for other people, for them coming into the space and just learning more about it. And me personally, I just love to share my knowledge about what happened and the process of what it took me to get to this point. And with that, I'm also building my own little community of women and teens, because as of last year, we're only 5% of women in the NFT space. And this year, we're trying to change that narrative and just have more women come into the NFT space and learn more about this technology in order to utilize it in the right way. So that has just been the whole journey so far for me. And in summary, thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mary Jane. I really appreciate your time and then the detailed explanation of what you've done so far. I think someone asked a question to Mary Jane. They needed to understand the collection you just mentioned. Can you just explain that in 2 minutes so that we'll run?
Okay, sure, no problem. My first collection is called Black is the Vision. And this is a collection that is just focused on Black African females, talking about the values and the beauty of it. This was all hand-drawn by me because, like I said, I'm a digital artist. So I just took inspiration from that. And I wanted to put Black art on the blockchain, because we see a lot of projects and they're very based on the person creating it. And my main focus in the storytelling side is just bringing more of Black African females and just bringing the culture to the blockchain. So that was it for me for the first collection. And my second collection, called Her Crown, this is a collection focused on celebrating Black women and our hairstyles, just showcasing the different Afro style that we have, just bringing in like the whole diversity of it from the Igbo culture, the Yoruba culture, and just, having that all in place. So that in total is just what, two collections are about based on the story views. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much, Mary Jane, for that. And I can see some people are actually asking for your contact and that they would like to reach out to you. I don't know how you find that. So I don't know, can you share your, like, an email address or something?
Okay, I'll just put up my socials for everyone to see. Sorry. So yeah, this is my Instagram account and also my Twitter account, which you can reach out to me. All my details are there, my email address and my phone number on how to like reach out. So I feel like that will be easier for people.
Okay, thank you so much, Mary Jane. We really appreciate your presence and the detailed explanation. Okay, at this point, we would ask the speakers to please put on their videos for a group photograph before we call it a wrap. Okay, is that done now? Oh, beautiful. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much. Participants, I don't know if we can have all our participants put on their videos if you're interested for just a minute. Let's just capture all our participants. You guys are all amazing. You made it a really interactive session today. The chat box was really on fire and we really appreciate every one of you. Thank you so much. Okay. I think this is a very good place to call it a day for today's event. We really appreciate every one of you. Do enjoy the rest of your day and keeping safe. Thank you and bye.